So, all right. Today's discussion will focus on Escape from New York. Right. So this is the fictional date in which the president's plane, President Harker's plane, goes down in Manhattan. So to commemorate that date in our film history, we are going to discuss the film through a psychiatrist's perspective. So where do we want to start?
I think that the dude was a clear narcissist, just from him wanting to make sure that everybody knows that he's number one, especially when he made like the president say it while he was like tied to that wall. And he also just has like this like, I don't know, I feel like he's seeking a lot of external validation throughout the entire movie.
I think both observations are consistent with narcissism in general and narcissistic personality disorder in particular. Right? So the narcissist, as per the American Psychiatric Association, as per the DSM, as a condition, does adhere to a cardinal trait. Individuals who believe they are special, and that they can only be understood by people as special as they are, and therefore have a quality about them that is very arrogant, haughty, right? Haughty. Would you say that defines or that describes the Duke? Because if I'm hearing no, I'm not so sure if this is an easy diagnosis or a straightforward diagnosis to make. If we're going to have a consensus that says, oh yeah, then I think we're onto something. I think we have the dissenters, unless we have people that are just quiet today. Other observations about this character?
Got a cool nickname.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to ask him? People here today? With proper security.
Why he's in prison?
Yeah, we definitely want to know that information.
How he got into power, like how he became like top of the food chain.
That would be even more of a interest of mine. We see this in film frequently, where people in extraordinary circumstances rise to the top to take the lead, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's largely a result of their having the exact opposite lot in life previous to the apocalypse. Love to know where this comes from as a psychiatrist. Would it surprise anyone if we did see that character development from that subordinate person in quote unquote real life prior to the apocalypse? Because that would be consistent with narcissism, maybe not the personality disorder, at least parallel, right? One's self-esteem and self-efficacy, their image, completely turned around to its opposite, right, in terms of that, the persona that they show the world. But
I feel like that happened to the president too, because he's like the most important person in the country, and then as soon as he's like in this environment, he's suddenly like subordinate and he's at the whim of like his captors. But then as soon as he's out, and Snake, is like, think about all the people who died for you, and he's like, yeah, well, whatever. And it's like, it's interesting how maybe it's like not narcissistic personality disorder, but that narcissism like flips right back.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. If you had, not that I assigned it, but if we had watched this movie back-to-back, maybe back-to-back weeks with Independence Day, and how that president, during a very similar apocalyptic event, alien invasion, former pilot, making sure he's part of the squadron, completely different character portraying the president of the United States than Donald Pleasence did. Other things to talk about. Escape from New York.
Brain wouldn't touch a gun. I think his wife was always the one that I saw doing it, but he for some reason wouldn't.
What do you think?
PTSD. PTSD, maybe.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. Any additional signs there? Not that we're allowed to talk about it, but. In starting our case formulation about why somebody would avoid an object, what's one of the first things that comes into a clinician's mind?
Specific phobia?
Yeah, phobic avoidance, right? Now, phobic avoidance can be in the context of multiple potential illnesses and a differential diagnosis, one of which is PTSD, certainly another specific phobia in the differential. But that's the way I would think our thoughts might begin to unfold in working this up. What are some questions you'd ask them?
How he met Maggie, if they met in there or outside.
So if his reply was, this is a more long-standing relationship, how does that influence your clinical decision-making?
No, it makes me wonder if she's always been the one like in charge, or if it was after they went into there that she kind of took that role.
See how that dynamic played out? Yeah.
I wonder if it's like an attachment style because now they're stuck in like this place. So now maybe it's like, are you really together because you want to be together? Or are you just attached because this is all you know from the outside world?
Yeah. And it's a very, and that really begins to provide a parallel here when it comes to prison psychiatry. Practicing psychiatry in the prison system is just different than any other inpatient practice. And those types of dynamics are things that we have to consider that are going to both directly as well as significantly impact human behavior. So again, we're not going to be able to rely on pills for this. We have to get a real understanding of all of the above, and that dynamic, those relationships, are something that we have to definitely delve into. Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned that like Maggie was a gift to Brain from the Duke. And it just kind of felt like to me that Brain didn't really care about Maggie as much as like she did him. Kind of, I don't know, I feel like that.
But might that be part of?
That he couldn't really get that kind of like connection with her.
So, any more on that?
Maybe he just wanted to like, because he listens to the Duke, because he's scared of the Duke, so he would do anything like just to keep the Duke happy. So maybe that's why he's with Maggie.
So you're saying, if I could reword things, that this is more of a cerebral process for him, right? What happens if it's not, though? Is there anything below the surface? Is there something subcortical that might be at work here to explain this?
Maybe something in his childhood, like with his parents, like maybe his mom was always the dominant one, or so that's why he's with Maggie.
When in doubt, always go to the earliest childhood experiences and making sense how adults forge and maintain relationships, especially meaningful relationships. Right. And again, this is going to be difficult because they're in a very artificial situation here. But as a psychologist, we'd still want that information. Mm-hmm. What about from Maggie's perspective?
I think she sees him as weak.
Yeah. So then why does she do what she does?
I feel like, again, in her early childhood, like maybe that's just the relationship she always seen with her parents and that dynamic. Also, maybe because he's obviously close to the Duke, maybe she feels like it will help her in a way.
I mean, if her goal is to escape, she has to play that game too.
But she like, after he was killed, she stayed back. I mean, why didn't she keep going on?
Why? I don't know. What are some possibilities here?
You're just attached. Like sometimes, like you do silly things. Maybe not because you love a person, but you're just attached to them and the idea of them.
Yeah, there might be some aspect of the Stockholm Syndrome at play here. Whatever dynamic might explain the Stockholm Syndrome may be in play here in this dynamic. And then from his perspective, that would be the Lima Syndrome, right? The captor falls for, becomes enmeshed with the individual that they've, in this case, imprisoned.
So Stockholm Syndrome can like project itself in that way, even though she kind of seemed to like, I guess, I know, like, he mapped out everything, and he was the brain, obviously, but she was in charge in, like, terms of, like, physically and with a gun. So even in those dynamics, she could still get Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if we can cover evidence that this was a conscious effort on her part, that she had a plan, then no. The Stockholm Syndrome, that dynamic would be subcortical. It would be unconscious. But if we thought, no, there's a conscious component to this, she knows what she's doing, then that's not Stockholm. And it works the other way, too. If we felt that any aspect of his behavior was influenced by his being emotionally connected to her, Lima Syndrome, that would be unconscious or subcortical, too. Other comments, thoughts? Escape from New York.
He has so much plot armor. Did you see the boxing scene? He should have, like, he was injured. There was no way he should have won that. I just can't get over that.
He's Snake Plissken, man.
This is kind of like branches off a little bit. I remember when I was signing up for the internship before, like, I had decided the ranking of what I wanted to sign up for. They told me that there used to be a couple of interns that used to go down like to a jail or a prison or whatever, but that internship was discontinued due to the fact that a lot of the interns or like people that were working there couldn't handle it. Like, it was bad for their mental health. So all right, besides the fact that I guess it was proven that it's bad for the employees that work there, how effective do you think these techniques would be without as much medication that like the outside world has for these prisoners?
So I think in prison psychiatry, the pharmacotherapy is the same. So that's not the issue. And I have to be honest with you, I don't know why the internship doesn't continue to assign interns to those venues. I certainly wasn't part of that decision. So I don't know the nuances to that. The most difficult part of prison psychiatry, beyond the cohort, the population itself, is the dynamic of providing health care within that system. And in that way, that component, that factor, it really isn't that much different from a nursing home doctor. So a gerontologist that cares for the elderly differs from a gerontologist that rounds on individuals who is in a nursing home. Because at that point, the dynamic of practicing within a nursing home setting becomes its own contributing factor. So it's very similar in that fashion, if that makes sense. And again, I don't know how any of the above impacted the director's decision to terminate the site assignment. I have no clue what that was about. I know that our trainees that are assigned to during their third year, that very venue, very much enjoy it. And we have a considerable number of our trainees. They, after completion of their general training, go into forensics because of their experience. So they find it very rewarding and very exciting. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I did. I got it.
And again, I think from my perspective, the formulary is the same. I don't know I'm sure there's some difference, but not significantly. The one part of quote-unquote prison psychiatry that also takes place outside in other venues as well, but I think is more pronounced, is the history of drug use. To be a psychiatrist and to treat that patient population and not have a background or a comfort in addiction psychiatry would be difficult. So I could see that maybe being a mismatch if that is the case.
I found the taxi driver to be kind of interesting. I forget his name, honestly. But because he seemed to be like, he didn't seem to be a criminal at all. Like, he seemed like there was nothing that, could pop out. So I kind of wondered, like, maybe in his past he was worse. And then in that case, like, could, like, this idea of just dropping a bunch of criminals in, like, a city be, like, a good way for them to kind of improve as people? Rather than, like, a structured prison where they're constantly being, like, monitored and watched.
My first impression is probably not.
Probably not, right?
Makes for an awesome movie.
I thought like
But-
I was just kind of curious, like, well, like, what was their thought process of just dropping all these people in the city and like thinking that it's gonna like kind of like help them, or did they not care about that and they just like had no other option, so they kind of had to do it?
My gut says in this dystopian America that they had no other options.
Yeah.
They blew up the island bridges and turned Manhattan into a maximum security prison, and it really was zero about the individual person and probably everything to do with the politics and community, the community standard, protecting the community.
Yeah.
But why not like give them food? Because like I remember the scene where they're like, oh, they ran out of food, and then it was just cannibalism.
Yeah.
Like, why not give them food?
But I think this is the writer-producer's John Carpenter's social commentary on if we're going to forget them, we're going to forget them.
Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, I thought they did give them food though. I thought it was like there was like a food like drop spot.
the drop spot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But they probably like certain groups probably took it
No,
off.
there was
Oh,
like
yeah.
monthly
They-
rations, so they had to
yeah.
like make sure they didn't eat enough until the end of the month.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't know if it's fair, but yeah, I get it.
No, it's not fair.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Not fair at all. But,
No. There was something you brought, somebody brought up. I was going to comment on it, but I think I forgot what the comment was. No, we'll get there. It's another question you had asked. No.
wait, I
Oh,
asked it?
actually, you know what? I just remembered something though. Recently, at the Pop Culture Association's national meeting, which was this past April, there was a symposium. So these are 90-minute symposia where they have 3 speakers, 30 minutes each, or 20 minutes each, and then time for a Q&A. So it's a very straightforward, brief presentation on multiple aspects of popular culture. And there's one symposium that I was in. There was one speaker that focused on the Saw series, right? So another series that certainly is a psychological thriller. And the general idea here was, is there anything to this idea of bringing people through a hardship that gets them to be reborn in some way and a better citizen? Right, so we see some parallel here between what's going on in this movie and any of the Saw films, right? Is John Kramer right? Is there any evidence in the literature to support Kramer's theory, his mantra on life? And the answer is no. And that's in the research literature. And then what this individual person did, and I wish I would remember the speaker's name, I'd give them proper credit, but they went through every Saw film, I think there's 11, and did a body count. How many people were actually ensnared in one of John Kramer's and one of Jigsaw's traps? How many died? How many survived? And those that survived, did they have a new lease on life, or did they just go back to their criminality? And what that person showed was that the results are fairly damaging. Only 2 people live and are improved as a result. And those outcomes in the film franchise, are significant or consistent with the literature, that this is not a way to rehabilitate people by bringing them to the precipice of death, having them survive, and getting a new lease on life as a result. So there's some of that here, right, in terms of social commentary on how we're rehabbing people.
Wait, so you're saying not to bring people to, like, basically their deathbed? Like, you're saying that doesn't work?
Correct. To manipulate somebody, to bring them to rock bottom and have them survive and get through it so that they can appreciate life is not something that is consistent with the medical literature. And it's not consistent with the outcomes of multiple people, fictional characters in the Saw franchise either. So they actually get it right. And I thought it was a pretty remarkable, well, first of all, just being able to watch every Saw film and do that count in itself, there's a lot of respect there.
Isn't like, I don't even know if this is right, because I can't remember, but doesn't like being in like near-death situations make you really hold on to your original beliefs?
I don't know. I just know that it doesn't rehab people. right? In terms of checking the literature and what the literature shows, that doesn't really show that it's any great benefit for folks.
Yeah, why do like so many people have that as a testimony? Like I see like especially a lot of Christians, they're like, oh, I almost died and then I turned to God or something.
They come on an individual basis. This is the other thing about the literature, is that the literature looks at cohorts and looks at statistically what's likely to happen. But those stats are like at a 95th percentile, 95th, that is a 0.05 p-value, meaning that there's 5% of the population, even in those studies, that are the quote-unquote outliers. So on an individual basis, I mean, if a person tells you that happened, then you know what? It happened. As a physician, you could only provide care, you could only provide feedback to individuals that is consistent with the evidence-based literature. That's what your job is. So you're looking at those data with the idea that not everybody follows the medical journals. There are people that are quote-unquote outliers. Right? Anything else about Snake here? You guys are avoiding one of the coolest anti-heroes ever created. What's up?
You like him?
I like him.
It was so cool.
He
In the
is.
beginning, when they were like, oh, the president went down, he was like, oh, what? That's like the coolest thing ever.
For the time, dude.
That's a medal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eye patch, long hair, beard, and a machine gun. And he's ripped.
You know,
on top of it?
I should like him.
This guy is sick.
It was
Yeah.
getting outdated a little bit.
I couldn't get past his bad acting, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just,
Guys,
yeah.
come on.
Well, there's a fine line between being critical and acknowledging a classic, for sure.
That's sick.
We can still focus on the character from a psychiatrist's perspective, though.
I think he shows antisocial personality just from his lack of
The president
respect of following order.
Right.
And,
And we all know where this conversation goes, and that's a past psychiatric history, that's a developmental history. Did anybody actually get on the wiki and learn about this character? I mean, we as a thought exercise, we say if we had him here today, what would we ask him? But there's a wiki on Snake Plissken. Who is this guy?
I guess the only thing I did respect is the fact that he performed, under the fact that he could die. I don't think I could perform in those conditions.
Nobody could in the country. He's the only one. That's why they got him.
it was
He-
a
That-
blue heart. Wasn't he?
Purple
a
heart.
Purple heart.
Purple
Yeah.
heart.
Purple
Twice
Yeah.
in Siberia.
Yeah.
And he did in 24 hours too.
That's nuts. Like finding this guy in all the city of Manhattan.
Yeah, I have a difficult time finding Broadway.
That's
I got to find the president that's been kidnapped. It's not going to happen. They're not sending me in there.
I mean,
Yeah,
he rips
no.
the tape up. That's like the coolest end scene, is ripping the tape up.
yeah. That was cool.
So anybody know what his background is?
He was in
He was in
the
the soul, yeah.
Yeah.
Then he
And then-
stole. from-
Yeah, he
World War II.
carjacked. And then he keeps evading stuff, like it talks about an earthquake, talks about how he was in New Vegas,
Oh, his
Thailand.
parents were killed from a hostage attack. And it's like he blames the government and the police. And that's how he also lost an eye.
Maybe he's a psychopath. Like, can you develop becoming a psychopath later on in life?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The answer is yes, even though the APA will not. I don't think really acknowledges that. When we look at a true personality disorder, we have to first recognize and appreciate personality development, and that the personality develops disordered, and that's the textbook. However, we do see cases in which people begin to incorporate these characteristics later in life. Then what? And there's not an easy answer to that. So it doesn't really fit the textbook or the nosology, but it can happen. It can happen. I think the easiest thing to do here would be to not relate the term antisocial personality disorder. We don't actually then think of it as a true disordered personality because it's not consistent with the way the personality develops. However, we probably do exchange it for terms like psychopathy. So I think that's kind of where we are right now with creating that clinical term as a psychopath or an individual who has psychopathy.
Didn't he fly the plane up into the World Trade Center when he first arrived?
On top of
On
it.
top of, I know, I mean, I did too. I mean,
Yeah.
on to. I was low-key thinking, did they predict this? You know? That was
They predicted
that
that.
was insane. I was like, oh wait, this is 1980.
It's like he's like 57 in the future.
Imagine.
I mean, that would be The Simpsons.
I was gonna say they predict
What's
everything.
up with that? Yeah.
Yes,
Why do they predict everything?
that's another course.
Wait, really?
I would no, but I would definitely do that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Snake? Especially since we're not allowed to talk about antisocial personality disorder.
I think that even though like he doesn't seem to have a lot of empathy, I think maybe he could also maybe a sociopath more than psycho, because if you didn't have empathy, you wouldn't ask the president like, what about all the people that died for you, because you wouldn't care, I guess, in a way. So
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need more time with him. I don't know how much of this is that persona, and getting through that, whether or not there is a capacity for empathy, and whether we would use that sociological term of sociopath versus psychopath if we're going to create that extra term. I don't know.
I feel like he does have some empathy though, because like when he was talking to like meet Brain for the first time, he was like, "You betrayed like us and like Fresno Bob, and he's the reason why like Bob died." So he did show some like he was feeling sad that his friend died because of his other partner.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's like the government. He just doesn't like the government, which is why like the president and like that one commander who like he doesn't like them only.
Mm-hmm. That's clear. That's definitely his motivation. Final thoughts? All right. If we're on Zoom, let's stay on Zoom for just a second. We're going to log off the live stream. And I will post next week's discussion, both Seinfeld and Night's Watch, on X a little later today.